welcome to the Book Witches podcast,
Woo!
hosted by Alex and
Inez Sage,
hello,
Yeller.
hello. We're so happy to be here. We have talked about doing this podcast for a long time, and we have finally gotten together. The stars have aligned, and so we're going to go ahead and get into it. This is
Yay.
our first episode, and we're going to take some time to introduce ourselves, let everybody know who we are, what can be expected from this podcast, the kind of things that we'll be talking about, what we're all about, and we will be diving into the first book that we're going to be talking about, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It is a popular one. It is one that we first bonded over, I would say, from the beginning.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, it really took off.
Yeah, that's kind of how we started our book loving relationship, so to speak. All right, so before we begin and get into our first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, let's just take a moment to center ourselves. We'll just take 5 slow, gentle breaths to begin. So before we get into it and get grounded, why don't you grab your favorite beverage, maybe a warm tea and a cozy blanket. Find a comfortable seat and just get settled in with us.
Mm.
All right, so go ahead and make sure your feet are touching the ground. If you're sitting in a chair, or you can sit cross-legged, and we'll take those 5 breaths together. So go ahead, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Just releasing any tension as you exhale. Once again, inhale, calm. And exhale, stress. Inhale, light and warmth. And exhale, heaviness. Inhale, clarity. Exhale, distraction. And one last time, inhale deeply, holding for a moment at the top. And finally, exhaling slowly, feeling your body soften. And now, let's begin our journey.
Yay. Thank you, Alex. That was beautiful.
No worries. My pleasure. All right. So today, as mentioned, we're going to enter the world of A Court of Thorns and Roses, written by, as mentioned, Sarah J. Maas. So it's a world where danger and desire blur and nothing is quite what it seems. But before we get into that, let's take a moment to talk a little bit about who we are. So Inez, I will give you the floor. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you. So A Court of Thorns and Roses totally gravitated towards me just because in my spiritual practice, like I am so part fae, like I just feel it in my bones. But yeah, so my name's Inez Sage. We're both yoga practitioners, and so getting like spiritual and fantastical is so important in my life. Like finding the magic within the world is so like enriching, and it makes life just more joyful for me. I personally try to find like little rainbows everywhere. Like, you know, when you kind of like gaze into the sunset and you kind of close your eyes a little bit, you can see little rainbows on your eyelashes, I swear. So, but yeah, what kind of books that I like too is I love fantasy and I love like adventure. I try to balance like my fiction with nonfiction. So I'll typically try to read a fiction and then read a nonfiction and go back and forth. I am a fine artist. I've been mainly doing a lot of oil paint, but I also incorporate glitter, glow in the dark paint. I grew up in Southern California, hashtag South Paso Dangerous. Um, yeah, and then, so recently, I know Alex and I met, in California. We became best of friends,
Hmm.
and soul sister witches. What's up? But,
Yes.
I recently moved to the East Coast with my now husband.
Mhm.
Um, we just got married recently. Been a
Congratulations again.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot going on. So I'm so excited that like we can start this and like keep like build something together, even like so far away. I'm a lover of books. We both are like lover of books. We both like recommend books that like we love, and it's just like so enriching. We both have like different tastes in books, but it's
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's what makes it interesting and
yeah,
fun. And so I'm Alex. You can
yes.
probably tell by different voices. So as Inez mentioned, we met in Southern California. I'm actually originally from Chicago, but I moved to LA when I was 21, and now in my 30s. So LA has pretty much become a second home now. And Inez and I met when we were actually in yoga teacher training, our 200-hour yoga teacher training. And I remember the youngest ones there, and we sat next to each other and naturally gravitated towards one another. And the more we talked, the more we realized we have so much in common. And yeah, it's been just love and friendship ever since.
I know, yeah. I know.
And actually, I didn't have a baby yet at that time. I remember that was another kind of thing that we bonded over. We were also in a yoga training with all mothers, and I remember it was something that we mentioned that we loved.
Yeah. You weren't even married yet.
Oh, true. Yes. So we are now
Yeah.
both old maids. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I am a mother to a very rambunctious and energetic 2-year-old that keeps me young.
Mhm.
And I'm just really excited to start this podcast. I am a lifelong reader of books. I have been reading since I was really little. It was probably the greatest lesson that my mother taught me, I would say.
Mhm.
I love all kinds of books. I actually was an English major in college, so that love of literature really followed me from childhood to adulthood. And I love all different genres from historical fiction to fantasy to even memoirs, which I've been really getting into as of
Oh,
late,
yeah.
and science fiction as well. So we're going to be talking about a wide variety of genres. But let's also talk about a little why we chose the name Book Witches and
Yes.
why we kind of want to present ourselves as such. So Inez, do you want to?
Yeah. Yeah, so like when we met in the yoga teacher training, it's very like incorporates spirituality, of course, but I think we really connected on like practicing Wicca and practicing like witchcraft in the sense of connecting with the earth. Because I feel like there's different ideas of what witchcraft and like Wiccan is.
Yes.
And I think
Especially now, it's gotten
yeah,
quite trendy, I would say.
yes, absolutely. For me, I feel like witchcraft is just connecting with the earth and the natural rhythms of being human on this planet, you know, the seasons, the menstrual cycles too, being a female, and just like connecting with yourself instead of like being bombarded with like technology and advertisements and stuff like that. Typically
Totally.
for me.
I think that's really to us what the whole concept of witchiness or witchcraft means. It's
Mm,
a lot of it is really connecting to that sacred feminine energy.
yes.
Which, of course, we know, even those who maybe are not as attracted to that concept know the concept of Mother Earth, right? So we definitely think that it's important to find that reconnection, and perhaps even those who have lost it, to find yourself connected with nature again, just because when you live in better harmony with nature, with the natural cycles and rhythms of life, you feel in better balance and you feel a wellness that really crosses over from physical to mental, emotional, and spiritual. And also, let's talk a little bit about the witchy woman trope and why that is important to us.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I think we're both definitely, we would call ourselves feminists, right?
Yes. I know, and like the witchy woman is almost in like typical media, like ostracized or like goes against the grain and like brings up topics that people aren't necessarily, they feel uncomfortable, but it's things that need to be talked about, you know?
Yeah, I think that there tends to be maybe like a subconscious fear of like the strong woman, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a lot of patterns, especially in society and currently more specifically of I'll say it, toxic masculinity,
Yeah.
and a lot of kind of, I think well, let's just say that I believe that the sacred feminine needs to be healed. And so one of the best ways I think we can do that is to keep having conversations about it, to keep it in the forefront of our minds, to
Mm-hmm.
stay aware of it, of its importance. And so I guess Inez and I are kind of like, we like to see ourselves as warriors for the cause, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
We're
God.
very passionate about the earth, and so that definitely translates to the environment, which I will definitely give Inez massive props for. I learn a lot from her when it comes to the environment and caring for the earth.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna bring
Inez
up a
was
lot of nonfiction up in here, man.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And see, that's one of the things I would say, one of the points we differ on. I respect it, but I will admit that I read a little bit more to escape. And so,
Yeah. Hey.
although I acknowledge the importance of facing the truth and reality, I'll admit that I tend
Yeah.
to maybe not be it. But I am all here for Ina's teaching
Yeah.
us about it. And
But even like
so,
I would even give you props, like even your readings in yoga and Ayurveda, like I feel you've connected a lot more to Ayurveda than me, which I've learned so much from you, like the practical aspects of it too, which
yeah,
I
and let's mention what Ayurveda is to those who might not know.
yes.
So, Ayurveda is actually the sister science to yoga. So they are interconnected completely. If you practice one, then it's natural to practice the other.
Mhm.
Putting it most succinctly and simply, I'd say Ayurveda is kind of the diet side of yoga. It's definitely the lifestyle side of yoga. So it's learning
Mm.
how to live and eat like a yogi, self-care practices that really help you align even more closely with nature, even when we're off the mat. So just to get, it's really parallel, by the way, to ancient Chinese medicine, and it is the actual ancient medicine of India. So those are the birthplaces of these practices that we so very much love and respect. So we
Oh,
will always bring honor. And of course, Ayurveda is a Sanskrit term. So it literally means the science of life.
yeah.
Definitely
Comment
means.
below if you have any questions, if you want us to expand on
Yes,
anything.
yes, yes. We will be sharing more as we go. But definitely like yoga and Ayurveda is not the main thing we're talking about, but it
Yeah.
is one of the main ways we connect. So you'll just be hearing that here and there, and we're always happy to answer
Yeah.
questions or elaborate. So the last thing that I think we want to mention before we finally get into our official book talk of A Court of Thorns and Roses is just the importance of having intellectual discussions about books
Yes.
and why books are so
No.
important.
Knowledge is power.
It is. And, I think that, like Inez mentioned, the technology and everything that we're seeing, let's maybe call it the dependence on technology, especially social media. Um, yeah, it's affecting everybody. And I would say it's affecting people negatively,
Yeah.
predominantly. Of course, technology is very important. It's also allowing us to connect. And, if it wasn't for technology, we would not even be able to do this
I
podcast.
know,
But,
yeah. But
but
I also
yeah,
think that like I feel people are feeling this like dependence on technology, and I feel like they crave something else. And I'm like, let's go back to reading books. Like, why not
yes,
open a book
yes.
instead of watching your nightly like TV show or movie or something? Like, let's cozy up. Let it,
Absolutely. And I
yeah.
will say that it changed my life because before I got pregnant, I was relying really heavily on screens and screen time, just,
Hmm.
I mean, like everybody else, watching my nightly Netflix, playing video
Hmm.
games, which I still do a lot of.
I know it's okay.
But
Me too.
but then I got pregnant and, had to change a lot of my lifestyle, and man, was I bored.
Mhm.
And I was
Yeah.
like, what can I do? What can I? And I was like, hey, I have all these books that have been sitting on my bookshelf since I graduated from college, and I had admittedly been burnt out. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get back into it. And I think when I was pregnant, the first year I made a goal of 12 books for the year. The next year was 24 and I hit that. And then this year I'm doing 52.
Which is
Um,
wild. Oh my god.
I thought it was too, but it's surprisingly a lot easier to get to. But I will say I did stop watching Netflix. I don't
Yeah.
miss it. And I'm not saying that, it's like I think that this is how I'm going to live forever. But what I think it did is it helped me turn inward more.
Mhm.
Um, reading, I think, really helps you get to that calm, quiet, serene place.
Mhm.
I think that it's safe to say I definitely experience the same when I'm doing yoga or meditating. And so
Mhm.
reading is such a beautiful practice that it's not just food for your mind, but it truly is food for the soul. And I don't want to sound cliche or corny when I say that, but I just remember ever since I was a kid, my mom saying, "Oh my gosh, my books are my greatest possessions. And if the house was burning down, that's the first thing I would grab." And man, I just remember thinking, well, that's kind of weird, but I totally understand what she meant now.
Yeah, I know it
So,
is for real. Books definitely growing up were like a safe space for me. Like they were my
mhm,
friends. They were like my companions that were I was going through life with them, which I love. And like it is food for the soul, but also it's like let's work on our imagination. Like we're all
yes,
creative beings. We're like literally
yes.
looking at ink on dead trees and hallucinating. Like
Yeah, definitely. That is a good way to put it, right?
Yeah. Oh my god.
And I think, Inez and I talked a lot about recording a podcast. It's something that we had wanted to do for a long time, but we can never kind of get the idea straight. And what ultimately led us to creating a book podcast was that we were at one of our favorite bookstores in Southern California, Vroman's. You might know of it. It's a pretty big major one. We
Yeah.
were just exploring and having a great time and reminiscing, and we were talking about the various books that we were passing, and there were multiple people that we were coming into contact with and having these conversations simply because they overheard our comments about these books. And
Yeah.
one of the ladies that we talked to was like, "Oh my gosh, you got me so excited about this book that I kind of gave up on, that I really want to read it again." And that was the moment where I looked at Inez. I'm like, "Okay, we
Yeah.
have to
We
do
gotta do
this. I think this is
it.
it." So
Yeah.
here we are. All right. So welcome
Yeah.
once again to the Book Witches podcast, and let's get into our first episode.
Yes. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit first, Inez. Actually, I don't know if I ever asked you this, but what led you to this book? Because you were the one who introduced it to me.
Oh yeah, okay. It's kind of because I feel like the Court of Thorns and Roses, it got really popular really fast. Like I
It
think I
did. And I even heard about it from somebody who doesn't read at all, which kind of
oh
goes to show
really?
that I think it's one of the what they call book talk, right? One of the books that
Yeah.
was kind of featured on TikTok.
Yeah. So I'm like kind of it's like almost spreading a disease. Like so a coworker of mine was like you have to read it. And so I was like the next victim of this series.
I'm
um
laughing because it's kind of a good way to put it.
it is 'Cause it's the first book I recommend usually when someone, like, is kinda off and on reading, and I'm like, this, because I
Mm,
think it was, what, 2021, and the whole 2020 thing, y'all know what I'm talking about, but, I was burnt out on reading. I was not reading that much even though, I loved reading, but, I was working, customer service, and uh, please, everyone knows if you work in customer service, you do not have energy when you get home. Like,
mm,
I would just crash out.
yeah, I
And
hear that.
a coworker of mine was like, "You need to read this series. Like, please read it." And she actually lent me her own copies of her books. Shout out to Olivia. Thank you, girl. But I started reading it and I'm like, "I cannot put this down." Like, I it's so good, and I read it during, like, the winter, and so, we were inside. I would always, like, light a candle, and after work, I would just, like, read for hours until I had to go to bed. It was just, like,
Yeah.
so satisfying to have this series, but, I wanna keep
So
it just to the first book.
yes, yes. So this episode that we're doing, we're only going to be talking about the first book. So you might have gathered, if you have not read this book, along with the books that follow, it is a series. How
Mhm.
many books is it again, Inez?
I think it's 4.
Four. Yeah. So there's four books in the series. The first book, of course, is called The Court of Thorns and Roses, and the other books have different titles. And we'll talk about that in the upcoming episode. So we'll
Mhm.
probably dedicate at least one or two more episodes to the books. I don't know if we're going to combine any, maybe with that
Oh,
third one,
maybe.
but
Yeah, the 3rd one,
well,
yeah, is pretty
yeah.
short.
Yeah. So it is just like a little background for those who don't know anything about this book. It is considered a young adult genre book, and it's also fantasy. So those are just to give you an idea of what kind of book this is, for those who don't know. But if you are at all into the world of reading, I would be surprised if you have not heard about this series. It's a fantasy book series that's set in a fairy world. So there are definitely fantasy characters, fantasy races, and that's one of the things that really makes it a lot of fun. I think it helps you really escape
Mhm.
into a world. Talking about, reading for escape. This is a wonderful, I think, like what Inez was mentioning, for those who are kind of burnt out on reading, and maybe, you've had to read a little too many books for school, or you're just looking for something totally different. And if you've never read fantasy before, I think that this is a good kind of
Yeah.
segue into that. But another disclaimer, it is a little bit more of a sexy book. Let's
I
also put that on
That
the table right
surprised
away.
me. For real, when I first started reading it, I did not realize how, but it's good. It's classy. I will say it's
Um,
classy,
I will
people.
not lie. I think one of the people I was talking to about this, because they're like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And I had not known that it was to the level it is. I mentioned it, and the first thing they're like, "Oh, that fairy smut book."
I know my husband Chris calls it Court of Horny Roni, so
Oh, well, let's say that there are, but you know what? I will give this to the author. I think that Sarah J. Maas does a good job with keeping it fairly classy for what it is,
yeah,
because it's totally not like smut. It's not, I mean, the scenes are explicit, yes, so disclaimer on that, but it's not like you're reading like a Playboy article or like a
yeah.
porno or anything. So it's not
It
full on
has to be,
erotica. I would
yeah,
not put it in that category, but
right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So let's go ahead and like get into the nitty-gritty of the book itself. Tell me, Nez, what were your first thoughts about the book? I guess maybe
Um,
what were your expectations, and then what did you think as you were starting it?
Yeah, so yeah, my friend didn't give anything away. She kind of just like gave it to me and like, here, just like no context. So I don't think I really expressed like my love for fairies. And so when she gave it to me, I was like really excited and I loved it. Because also like for those adventure junkies who like adventure books, it has that in it as well. Um, because this isn't a spoiler, but like the main character, she's tough. Like she's hardworking. She is like providing for her family, hunting out in like the dead of winter. But and so like the explicit parts really it like shocked me because I haven't read like an explicit book in a while. So I was like, okay, this is a nice surprise. But
If you are reading, I would say so. Another thing to note is I'm trying to get Inez into audiobooks. She isn't into them yet,
yeah.
but so I do a combination of both audiobooks and regular just written books, and Inez mostly just does for now written books.
Yeah.
And that's one of the differences is that Inez read all of the books, and for this particular series I actually just listened to them. I did, so it was
Oh,
actually really
wow.
funny in the beginning because I would be like texting Inez about different things and I'm totally spelling all of the character names wrong and she's like sending me back messages with the correct spelling. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. If you know me, then you know that I'm kind of a grammar Nazi,
I
so
know.
spelling that. So it's just kind of funny. But anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
that's another.
Well, so Alex, how was that? How was that for you? Like the difference in reading it, like in listening to it than reading it? Like how
Yeah,
was
so
that?
I totally get like not everyone is into audiobooks and I totally understand why it's hard to get into because in the beginning when I first started listening to them, I had a harder time getting into it, but now I love them and I couldn't recommend it enough. I think it accesses a different part of your brain than reading does, but I still believe wholeheartedly that audiobooks count as
Mhm.
regular books. But I liked it from the beginning. It's like I said, it's kind of like an adult fantasy romance. It's a good
Mhm.
way to put it. It's like a dark fairy tale meets fae politics, right? And there's definitely,
Yeah.
as Inez mentioned, there's survival aspects to it. So the main character, her name is Feyre.
Mhm.
She's a 19-year-old mortal huntress, so she's a human, and she lives in a small village with her father and her sisters, and she is pretty much the provider for the family, right?
Yeah. Yeah, basically. I mean, should we do the spoiler alert now?
Yeah, so I think from this point, let's mention if you haven't read the book, you might want to at least start it to, get a good idea of the characters and what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
But if you don't plan on reading it, you just want to listen and hear about it, then,
Talk about it.
let's
Yeah.
go on. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so they're all human, but she has two other sisters. Her mother, their mother's dead. The father is crippled. And so Feyre, the main character, and isn't she's the youngest, and she's going out hunting for the family. Like,
Is she the youngest?
I isn't it? Because Elaine.
Oh God, I feel like we need to look this up. This is hilarious that we're so because okay, and you know what? I feel like if you've read this, you will understand why we're questioning this because I feel that there's another sister that we'll talk about that to me reads more as if she's the youngest. And so I just looked it up. So yes, Farah is indeed the youngest of the three sisters,
Which is wild, which like also made me like hate the other sisters because they're like so
right?
rude and so mean to Farah. And Farah's like, bruh, I'm just trying to put food on the table, dude. Like,
Yeah, so okay, so let's talk a little bit about, I mean, this is a fantasy world, to be clear. This isn't set in any kind of a realistic, like it's not a historical fiction book
yeah.
mixed with, this is like a total fantasy world, including a fantasy village. But it feels very much as if it's like maybe set in, I don't know, 16 to 1800s, like European village life.
Yeah.
Like that to me is how like the beginning reads when you first started, and the whole kind of scene is Farah is hunting, for the family's next meal, essentially. So she's in the forest, and her weapon of choice is a bow and arrow. That's what she's uses, what she's really good at. And as you
Yeah.
read and realize there's clearly no kind of modern technology or anything. So this is a fantasy world devoid of technology and modern
Oh yeah. Which I love, which also adds to
modernity.
like escapism part of it too, which is
Mm-hmm.
like so satisfying to be in that world of technology.
Definitely, yeah. If anyone who's like a video game enthusiast like me, if you like
Mm.
World of Warcraft, which happens to be one of my favorite games,
Oh yeah.
if you like those kinds of worlds, anything that's fairy-esque or fairy tale-esque, then you will definitely enjoy
Yeah.
the vibe of this book. And so, yeah, let's kind of go on, go ahead and get really into what happens in the book. So as Feyre is hunting, she ends up killing a wolf while she's hunting for food for her family. And as it turns out, and here is where the spoilers are really happening. So if you plan on reading, go ahead and pause the show
Mhm.
right now. But if you're not planning on reading it, or if you've already read it, disregard. So it turns out that the wolf that Feyre kills is actually a fairy in disguise.
It seems kind of wild. I don't know. I want to get into like why that fairy was there and like what he was doing out in like the human world, because so there's a separation of like where the humans are and like where the fairy like land is. You can get to
Hmm.
it on foot, but it's kind of like separated into countries almost.
Right.
Um
It's not, they're not, excuse me, separated into like dimensions, right? It's an actual like world in the same place, but there's like a wall, right, that
yeah.
surrounds the fairy world. And so, okay, so Feyre kills a wolf. She thinks it's a wolf, though. She doesn't know it's a fairy when she kills the wolf. She's just trying to get food for her family. It's the middle of winter. Literally, there's no life around. So this is, her only chance. And she's excited not just about the meat, but also about the potential for skinning the fur and selling that,
Yeah.
and helping her family. That's her main concern, based on, who she is at this point in the book anyway. So the wolf ends up being the fairy as mentioned. And so what happens is that the
The-
Tamlin arrives, right? He's the fairy that arrives demanding retribution for Feyre killing this wolf.
yeah, because he's the Tamlin is the spring court like high fae. So Feyre just killed one of his men. And so he's like, give me my money.
Right. Yeah. So he shows up to the house. They're just like, she's thinking that she did this amazing thing. And then this real actual fairy shows up, and his name is Tamlin. And as Inez mentioned, he's what is called the High Fae. So in this world, there's High Fae, which is essentially the nobility,
Yeah.
right? And in this particular world, so because the book is obviously called A Court of Thorns and Roses, you can assume that there is royalty involved. So
Like the
it's set up,
spring court.
yes, there's different seasons, right? Every court is based on a season or like a concept like night, right? Or day.
Hmm.
But there's like the spring court, there's the summer court, right?
Yeah, the autumn court, the dawn court, which
And the night court.
and the night court, which is
Right.
important here.
Which is important. Yes, we will be talking a lot about that down the line. So
Yeah.
Tamlin arrives and he wreaks havoc, shakes everything up and pretty much kidnaps Feyre to be taken to Prythian, which is the land of the Fae.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Woo!
he kind of like he says it's basically kidnapping, but
I
he
mean, it
he's like
is.
he's like, "Oh, you killed one of my men, so you gotta repay me by staying in this beautiful, like, Fae country and living in my palace." Like, I would not say no. I'm like, "Okay, let's go." After
Okay,
being
well,
like,
that's good to know.
yeah.
That's funny. No, well, so this is a good point to mention that there's a lot of parallels actually in A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Beauty and the Beast, right?
Yes. Mhm.
That's kind of one of the things that this book is known to be close to. So it's almost like a Beauty and the Beast retelling with deadly fairy twists and
Yeah.
accents. So if you are into Beauty and the Beast, if you like that story, if you kind of are into the whole Stockholm syndrome trope, you will
Yeah.
like this.
I would say The Beauty and the Beast, it stops does it stop in the first book? I can't get too far ahead of myself.
Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, I think definitely The Beauty and the Beast is reigning true for the first book. I'm not sure about the other books, but for this first one, you definitely
Yeah.
get that vibe. I mean, and also like come on, roses, you know?
I know, yeah, beauty totally. For real.
It's woven through. It's not just because this, big
Yeah.
beast takes away this beauty and she's locked away in this
Yeah.
place, which I mean, that is what it is also, but
I think it's also crucial to mention that when she arrives, everyone is wearing a mask.
yes, so that's really important to note. So Tamlin himself as well, right? He's
Yeah.
wearing a mask. Everybody's wearing a mask, and she doesn't really understand why
Then they're unable to take it off like at any time.
at any time. Yeah, it's literally it's as if that the mask is part of their like skin at this point. So, um, as you mentioned, she lives in this beautiful court. So the spring court, it's like what you imagine would be spring heaven, right? The whole court itself is like a beautiful imagining
Blooming.
blooming,
Yeah.
yes, just blooming pink flowers everywhere, everything is coming to life.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I really like about this book, and the
Mhm.
images that it evokes is these really beautiful fantastical scenes.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
court is, I think the author Sarah J Maas, she does a really good job of descriptions, and I really like how she writes.
Oh, yeah.
um I
I
think we talked a little bit about young adults sometimes being a little corny.
Oh, yeah. I would not call this a young adult, like, like, specifically labeled as that, but I don't
You
know,
know
it did
why?
so
So
well.
this is interesting actually, because I always wondered what makes a young adult. Because like what you're saying, like it doesn't read like that. And I think that's what I'm trying to also mention about the writer is she
Mhm.
writes in a way that to me is more sophisticated, what you
Mm.
would get in like a regular, fiction or fantasy book. But I actually learned this when I was in school for literature, that the reason why it's labeled young adult is if the main character is between the ages of like 18 to 23, I think even sometimes a little bit older, but yeah, like if the
Yeah.
main character is like 18 to 23, it's automatically young adult.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
And
because
then
Farah's 19, she's still
yeah.
a teenager technically when this all begins. Yeah, that's why.
True. And it's like I think it was one of the first series I read that like the character wasn't 16, which I was like,
Mm,
okay, I am old enough. Can we get some like older main characters up in here,
yeah.
Which I
Yeah, I think
appreciate.
it's good. Well, yeah, and so much of that time, like when you're between 16 and 20, you change so much every year. So
True.
I think it's
Um,
really great that they have someone who's a little bit older. But
yeah.
yes.
And then going back to like the description. So Feyre is also a painter,
Mm,
which I connected to as well. And so like when she's going into these like magical and beautiful places, she's describing it so well that you can imagine it and you can imagine her like paints. Tamlin gives her like supplies and she ends up painting these scenes, which are absolutely magnificent.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's such a good point. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, I think that when we fall in love with a book and we see a lot of ourselves in the characters, it really adds
Yeah.
to the magic of it and makes us want to keep reading. And yeah, that I definitely would think a lot of you when I was reading or
Yeah.
listening rather to this book, and it would talk a lot about Farah's painting and how she saw the world.
Yeah, and, like, the contrast between, like, being in a hovel and, like, trying to survive and then now she's in this, like, beautiful, magical place where all of her needs are met. It's like, how can you not fall in love with being there and, like, almost falling in love with Tamlin, you know? I think I personally I don't know, how did you feel about Tamlin when she first went out there?
Yeah, so okay, so when Farah goes out to the spring court and she's pretty much under house arrest, but she like lives in luxury, right? So she's like in a luxurious prison. She's not allowed to leave, but she has everything she could ever want. So as Inez mentioned, Tamlin learns that she's a painter, so he gives her like a painting room and everything. And
Mhm.
it's essentially Tamlin and like his it's his loyal emissary, but it's like his best friend also, Lucian, right? He's
Oh yeah,
the
Lucian.
other high fae who's there.
I say Lucian.
Well, in the audiobook it's Lucian.
Oh, Lucian. Oh, ooh, ooh, ooh.
That's another thing. I know, sometimes you like, I remember when Harry Potter came out and everybody was like, how do you say Hermione, before the movies came out? It's
Oh
like a
yeah, it's
big thing.
Hermia.
Hermione. Yeah, that was a big. I know that's so funny, and like the same thing what we were talking about when I would text you the spelling, and it was just completely like Feyre. I thought
Yeah.
was like not even. But anyway,
I know. Yeah, yeah.
so just for the sake of just because that's I'm assuming how the author wants it pronounced, since like the
Yeah.
audiobook changed a bunch of narrators.
Lucian.
That's another thing I'll mention in another time, because that drove me nuts that they changed the narrator for each subsequent different book in the series, and
Oh
it
yeah.
they changed the way they pronounced some of the characters' names. It drove me nuts, because I mean, you get used to it, right? You kind of
Mhm.
make friends with the character in your head. You start to paint a picture of them, and so like when they totally change, you're like, what the heck?
Like you have blue eyes? No way. You
Yeah,
had
I mean, that's
brown
how it
eyes. Yeah.
feels. Yeah, when it goes from like one to the other. So yeah, okay, so let's
Yeah.
talk a little. So there's
Cameron.
Tamlin and Lucian, and they're pretty much like best friends. Lucian is he's like a sarcastic, kind of darker character. But Feyre likes him, I think, from the beginning, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, I like Tamlin. I know he's like her captor, but I was liking Tamlin and like they go out and they have like a picnic in the field and they go like what that magical part where they swim in this pond that's made of like starlight. Do you
oh
remember that
gosh.
part?
Yeah, yeah.
So magical. Like so I liked Tamlin in the beginning. I was like there's some things where he wasn't feeling good towards the end, but in the beginning I did like Tamlin.
Yeah, I okay, so I feel like from the beginning I felt like Tamlin was too perfect, I'll be honest, because I
Mhm.
felt like the way that he was presented, he's almost like this god who appears, and Feyre is totally, she's intimidated by him, and he is beautiful. That's something that should be mentioned, that all high fae are, how do they differ from humans? They're bigger, they're stronger, all of their senses are better, they're far more beautiful. Of
Mhm.
course, they have the classic pointy ears, which we all know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, Tamlin is, he's essentially a king of the court, so he's a very powerful guy, and his green eyes are very highlighted throughout,
Mhm.
but so kind of how Beauty and the Beast goes, right? We can assume that we know that Feyre eventually starts to fall for Tamlin.
Mhm.
So that's why I kind of mentioned the Stockholm syndrome effect. She's like the prisoner and starts falling in love with her captor. And so, like what Ina's mentioned, he starts to woo her. He takes her on picnics in his beautiful spring court, and they start spending a lot of time together. And he starts being on her mind a lot.
Mhm.
And she starts wondering about different things, as of course this is like a completely different world than hers. So she learns that there's a mysterious blight, right, that's affecting magic in the fairy world, because of course fairies can use magic. That's the main difference, I would say, not just the appearance between humans and fairies, but fairies of course can wield magic. And so Prythian, the fairy world, is really living in fear because of this mysterious blight or whatever it is. And so then we learn that the Fae are under a curse, right?
Mhm. And I think this is the time where I started feeling like, okay, Tamlin is trying to get something out of her, you know?
Right. Yeah. So this sets up the whole kind of problem, right? Like, what's the problem for every
Yeah.
book? Well, the problem is that there's this major curse, and so it's once again similar to Beauty and the Beast. Definitely that parallel is still there. And of course, who is engineering this curse? There is a wicked witch, and her name is Amarantha,
Mhm.
and she rules under the mountain.
Yeah. And so she like the fairies in I guess, is it just the Spring Court? But they can't tell Feyre outright, no, of the terms of the curse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, but this is the time where like you sense like Tamlin's trying to get something out of her. And then there's like some breaks in this like rose colored world where Feyre's a huntress, right? She's a provider, and so she wants to help, and
Yeah,
she wants to
that's her
go home,
natural. I
right?
would say that's like, okay, so one of the things, and this is my little English major side coming in, one of the things we learn about like main characters oftentimes, because I see Fair kind of as like an anti-hero. And usually
Yeah.
there's like a fatal flaw. And I feel like her fatal flaw is that she needs to help people. Like she can't not, because she's so used to being the essentially the nurturer, that
Yeah.
she feels like she
Well,
needs to save things, right?
yeah, but it's in that time where Tamlin's like, no, you're not allowed to help. You can't even, you shouldn't be riding a horse. I'm not going to teach you how to fight more than you already know. And where that's where my
Yeah.
feminist side is like, okay, dude, like what? All right,
Yeah, so it should be
like
mentioned.
back off.
So
Yeah.
the curse that we're talking, so the curse can only be broken if a human falls in love with Tamlin without being told the terms of the curse. So that's the caveat. So that's like the part, the curse can't be broken unless the human falls in love with Tamlin just on her own, right? So unless she's able to fall in love with Tamlin, and that's why, surprise, surprise, he's trying so hard to get her to fall in love with him. Yeah. And, and so, yeah, this is, I think, definitely when you start to, I mean, some people maybe still like Tamlin at the end of all this, but I think this is really when you start to like,
Question. He's like, because he's controlling her. I'm like,
well, yeah,
if you're trying to make me fall in love with you, let me help. Like, don't try to sequester me and keep me home like the barefooted woman that you think I should be, like
definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. And I have to admit, and this is like in the beginning, because so what we were talking about, this book does contain explicit sex scenes throughout.
mm,
Tamlin and Feyre end up making love, and it was actually, I felt like it was cringy. And,
mhm. Well, he
you
does have
know,
a mask on still.
that, well, hey, there are people out there with a mask kink.
Oh,
I'm not
that's true.
kink
That's true.
shaming. So I can totally see how that, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
haha. All jokes aside, that is a part of kind of the cringiness. But it's not even just that. I just, from the beginning, and I will give Miss Maas her props on this. I think she did a really good job of setting up that Tamlin and Feyre are actually not meant for each other. Um,
Mhm.
because to me, and even in those scenes, there just wasn't something that fit. They just, I don't know, something was off. And I just remember like my toes curling as I'm listening. I was like, oh God, like let this get it over with. And it's not because the writing was bad. The writing was
Yeah.
good, but I'm like, I just, yeah, I was sus about Tamlin from the get-go, and we kind of learn why that is
Yeah.
as
Well,
the book continues.
even towards the end, no, like where it's almost like, oh my God, she's gonna tell him she loves him, but then he leaves. And she almost stops herself too, telling him that she loves him. She says it in her mind, but she stops. And I'm like, okay, that's significant. Like she's feeling something's wrong here.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's one of the good things to mention. A good theme to touch on: love and power. Is love empowering or is it entrapping?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think with Tamlin, it's definitely entrapping.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I think it depends on the person. It depends on the relationship, right? I think it can be empowering, but it can also be entrapping.
Yeah.
I mean,
Entrapping. Yeah.
it's kind of clear that at this point that Tamlin has something like a problem he needs to solve, and Farah is kind of the means to his end.
Yeah.
So
I
anyway,
know.
so then essentially what happens, right, is that Tamlin ends up getting kidnapped by Amarantha herself.
Mhm.
And that this is, the huge kind of what really sets up for Feyre's heroism in the story,
Yeah.
because, as Tamlin is taken, of course, Feyre is going to go and get him,
Yeah.
of course, because that's her flaw. She needs to say, I mean, okay, and to be fair, she does love him at this point.
Yes. Yeah,
She
she's
doesn't
still
say
like
it.
yeah, she still has this idea of like that's I love him, so I'm gonna go save him, of course.
And it is, I think, also interesting to note that this is technically not her first love.
Oh yeah, that little guy in the village.
If you remember, yeah, she totally has a little boyfriend in the village before she's kidnapped, and she has a human boyfriend before she leaves.
Oh yeah, I was under the impression that she just used him for his body though. Like,
Well,
yeah,
it does. She does imply that. Yeah, I definitely think the way she talks about him, that there isn't really an emotional connection. That she just was, yep,
yeah,
like you said, interested in exerting her physical.
and just some pleasure in like the hell that she has to live through, right?
Totally. Yeah, yeah, definitely you don't get that that wasn't like a, so maybe this might not be her first boyfriend, but perhaps it is her first love,
And it
right?
is it is the first person who has like technically like saved her from what she's had to deal with. So that
Right. Right. So on one hand, that's a good point. On one hand, she's getting kidnapped, but it's like, is she being saved from the environment that she's had to live through? Because as mentioned, yeah, she has two sisters, and they kind of bully her, and they're rude to her and mean, and
and they're poor, starving.
yeah, and
Yeah.
she craves connection. I think that's the big thing with Feyre from the beginning. She wants to be more connected to her sisters, and she wants to feel more of a connection with her father, but she feels that there's like a lot of, I think, shame,
Hmm.
disappointment. And so, yeah, I think she needed to escape a little bit, give herself some space from where she came
Yeah.
from.
And I think it's a little feminine empowering too, because now like he's gotten kidnapped and now it's like, okay, now she can save him and I guess
Right.
pay that idea.
Right. So now comes her, brutal trial. So Tamlin, as mentioned, he's taken by the great queen Amarantha, and Farah follows, of course, and she ends up getting imprisoned, and then they tell her that she needs to complete three trials and a riddle.
Oh yeah. We didn't mention that Feyre is illiterate.
Oh gosh, yeah. So that is a big thing we need to mention. Yeah, so that's a big, big thing. Thank you so much, Ines, for
Yeah.
mentioning.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so Farah cannot read. That's a big vulnerability.
yeah. And the big thing that like made me not liking Tamlin is that Tamlin never teaches her how to read. Like, dude, your girl is illiterate. Like, teach her how to read. What?
Yeah, see, that's one of the things. Yeah, so like when we're talking about Tamlin kind of being, he's, I mean, he's definitely misogynistic. Okay, maybe let's not go that far. Let's call him a little chauvinistic,
Yes. Yeah.
I would say, right? Because yeah, he's more interested in having her for just the nurturing purposes and the
Yeah.
body
And to
purposes.
just to
And
break the curse, I think.
yeah, and the other part of that curse too, by the way, for those, who want to know, the curse that Tamlin had, he has 49 years to make a mortal girl fall in love with him. Those are, and
Yeah.
she can't know the terms of the curse before she falls in love with him. Otherwise it won't work to break the curse.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Feyre's trials now that she's under the mountain. She's imprisoned in a dungeon herself, right?
Mhm. And there's a new character.
There is a new character who's introduced. He is a high fae, right? And he is the plaything of Amarantha. He is, I would say, what, like her pet?
Yeah, the pet that kind of like people have the idea that he does her bidding, that he's kind of like her puppet. But he's the high fae of the night court.
Yes. So he is also a high fae. So he's pretty much like the equivalent of like Tamlin, he would be the same level as Tamlin.
Mhm.
So she Amarantha, and his name, by the way, is Resand.
Recent.
So, right,
Yeah.
Resand. Um,
Rysand?
yes.
Resand?
It's
Resand.
okay, once again in the audiobook, it's Resand.
Yeah.
I see I like the way it's written to me. I like Rysand, but it's Resand. It's
Resand. All right.
Don't get
Whatever.
me started on that. The pronunciation again. Just, whatever. So so as mentioned, yeah. So she goes up to Amarantha and she's like, I love him and I want to save him. And Amarantha tells her, well, if you care that much about saving him, you have to perform these 3 trials and you also have to solve this riddle that I'm going to give you. And if you're able to do all of those, then I will free Tamlin from his curse and you can take him with you.
The first
So,
trial, I think he killed it. She was so good at it.
yeah, tell us about the first trial.
Yeah, so she has to fight this like worm, this like humongous uh like think about the worm in SpongeBob where it's like humongous and it just eats everything. But since she's a huntress and she knows her way around like fighting and hunting, she's able to kill it.
Narrowly escaping, might I add.
Yes, she almost dies, but
Which is kind of the point of the trials.
yeah.
They're trying to kill her. I mean, they don't want her to obviously take Talon. This is kind of, and it's weird because this is totally like kind of a Colosseum scene, right? Like she's in this
Yeah.
like arena essentially, and all of these high fae and other fae are watching her pretty much get like thrown as food to this gigantic worm.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. But like she totally kills it. And as a reader, I didn't doubt that she could uh like fight it. I mean, there's 3 other books, so I didn't doubt that either. But
Yeah, well, sure, but you
yeah,
definitely, yeah, I think you respect her even more after the
yeah,
scene because you're like, oh, she's like
she
actually
can
a
hold her
badass.
own.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, for real.
So so
That was
that
the
was
first
yeah.
trial.
That was
What
the first trial.
was the second trial? She had to read something?
Yeah, so it ends up being really really interesting. So we're going to talk about the second trial in A Court of Thorns and Roses. So once she's able to complete the first one, she gets sent back to the dungeon, and you can tell Amarantha is disappointed. So
Mhm.
the second trial involves Feyre being lowered into a pit with a grate, and Lucian, our Tamlin's friend from the first part that we were talking about, he's chained on the other side.
Oh yeah.
And so Amarantha presents her with 3 levers and claims that pulling the correct one will save them, while the others will lead to death. So the catch, and like you mentioned this already, the catch is that Feyre can't read, and so she can't read the inscription above the levers.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so this is the big thing, and so this is when that vulnerability is really highlighted because I mean, it's pretty much clear. I think that Amarantha knows she can't read based on this, right?
Yeah, so Favor's like I'm screwed.
Yeah. And here is when we really see Rhysand kind of coming to the rescue.
Oh, true, because wait, so rewind. He comes to after that first trial, she's hurt, like physically depleted, and he comes to her I guess cell in the dungeon and is like, let me help you, or like let us help each other, right?
Yeah, and she's really, I think, surprised, right? Because once again, Rhysand is the pet or plaything of the great witch queen
Hmm.
Amarantha, who's orchestrating this curse and this whole terrible ordeal. So he comes to her, and I think she's really doesn't know if she can trust him at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it should be mentioned, by the way, Rhysand. So like, let's talk a little bit about appearances because I think they're important. And one of the things that makes this book so wonderful. and interesting and fun to read. So Tamlin, like, it's important to note that, like, it's very thematic throughout. So members of the spring court look like they belong to the spring court, and same with like the summer court and all that. So as mentioned, Rhysand is the high fae, the king of the night court. So he definitely looks the part, right? He has like really like, isn't his skin like dark blue or dark purple or something
I
along
just
those
think
lines?
tall, dark, and handsome is really.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely like, he has this like, and it's not just his appearance, like his whole kind of demeanor. He's this very broody, mysterious, kind of darker guy.
Literally uses like shadows to as his magic, right? Dark.
Right. So yeah, anything like you can imagine before we get into, later on, when we're going to be talking more about the night court and where he comes from, anything you can
Mhm.
imagine, like, it's totally, and I am sorry I have to bring World of Warcraft back into this again, but if you've ever played that game and you liked the Night Elves as your race, that happened to be my
Ooh,
favorite. Rhysand totally reminds me of like a night elf, like what you would imagine being a night elf to me.
ooh.
So if
I'm
you've
gonna
ever
have to
played
play
that game,
that.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to
oh my
play World
gosh,
of
oh my
Warcraft.
gosh. No, you don't. You will not. You will not have a life. You don't need to get into that. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, so all that aside, so through the second trial, Rhysand comes to the rescue. So yeah, like as Inez mentioned, he's wants to help her, and they talk and stuff, but she doesn't know. And then so it comes down to the second trial, and she's freaking out, understandably, because she's like, I'm gonna die. And so is Lucian,
Yeah,
and so is everyone else. And so I guess Rhysand ends up helping her. I guess this is his way to like prove that he's like her ally, essentially, through a magical tattoo on Farah's palm,
yeah.
right?
I
Because doesn't he give her the tattoo in the dungeon? They have
yeah.
this, they make an agreement, right?
I think that my impression was the tattoo was just the signing, like the proof that they have an agreement. But as she goes through the trials, it actually turns out like he's able to help her through that tattoo. Right. And that's how she gets
Yes.
through the reading, the second trial.
Right. Well, and he communicates through the eye tattooed on her palm.
Yes.
So then she's able to solve, she pulls the correct lever, Lucian doesn't die, and she officially solved, she wins, essentially, because this is like the whole thing is like a game.
Oh yeah,
So,
and then the party.
right,
Also,
okay,
yeah.
so this is, yeah, so there's a party under the mountain,
Hmm.
and this essentially, I think, yeah, it's in between the trials. And forgive
Yeah.
us for not knowing exactly, it's been a little minute, few minutes, obviously, since we've read this, but this is happening while the trials are occurring. And so during this party under the mountain, it's kind of, I think, the reason why there's a party is like Amarantha is kind of like showing off to her power and,
Yeah.
parading her pets and whatever. And, the fact that all these trials are happening. I mean, it's like a morbid thing.
Yeah.
So Tamlin and Feyre, they end up sharing like a charged moment because he approaches her, like you say, their
Yeah.
fingers kind of brush, and he leads her into a secluded room, and they start to kiss passionately, and essentially are beginning to, starts feeling like they're about to hook up.
Yeah.
But then Rhysand intervenes, right? And he
Yeah.
shames their behavior and kind of says, like, oh, you guys are putting yourself in so much danger, like, with Amarantha's wrath.
But it's like Tamlin's like just using her for her body. Yeah, it's Rhysand who is trying to help Feyre through these trials, but any chance Tamlin gets, he's just like, let me just release some tension or something. Let me just release some stress I'm feeling, even though
Right. And
you're going
also
through this.
also because, so it's important to note that the main reason why Amarantha like kidnaps Tamlin is because she actually loves Tamlin.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's like an important thing she's obsessed with him, right? So like one of the things that Rhysand comes in, even though Rhysand is her pet for, it's again just body purposes, I guess, or just like her plaything, he comes in there saying, what the heck are you guys doing? Like, she's gonna know that you were together, and this whole trial and everything's going to be for nothing because he's going to kill you both and she's going to kill you both anyway, right? And
Mhm.
so that's the point. I remember now that she smudges the body paint that Tamlin's wearing.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why Rhysand's like, she's gonna know. And so that's at that point, Rhysand uses his magic to erase the smudges of body paint from Tamlin's clothes.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and then that is the point where Rhysand actually, though, he's like angry and he forcibly kisses Feyre just as Amarantha and Tamlin walk in. So Rhysand, remember, he kisses her to make it seem like it was Rhysand and Feyre kissing, not Tamlin and Feyre. So Rhysand kind of makes it seem like, you know what I mean?
Takes the blame.
He takes the
Yeah.
blame. Yeah. So that is an important thing to note. So then, so that thing happened. So we kind of also learn, yeah, I mean, it's an
Um,
important thing because honestly, this is to me kind of the first sign of Rhysand coming into this triangle, which, yeah,
True.
this is gonna end up being a love triangle.
I know.
um
But then she starts the next trial and,
yeah, the third and
um
final
mm,
trial. So this is the third one that she needs to do. And remember, we did mention the quote, right?
oh, yeah,
The
the
riddle.
riddle, yeah.
Yeah, so let's mention the riddle because I want to read what it was. And I have to admit, I knew the answer from the beginning.
Oh, same, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of wish it would have been not such an obvious answer. I won't say what the answer is from the beginning for those who haven't, or who want to maybe read it. I mean, at this point, we've given a lot of spoilers, so I don't know if you will. But so Amarantha gives Feyre a riddle. It's one of the important parts that she has to solve in order to win this whole competition or whatever you want to call it. So here's the riddle. There are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times, I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft handed and sweet, but scorned, I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. So that's the riddle. And
Yeah.
should we say the answer? Or should we just talk about the third trial and then
Well, I think the answer is relevant because when she comes in for the third trial, she seeks out Tamlin's face. Like they're sitting on top of this like amphitheater and she's seeking him out and he's not even acknowledging her. He's not
right?
looking at her, not trying to like give her some connection to as support. And so when Amarantha give Farah this riddle, it's very relevant, I think.
Right. So okay, so the answer to the riddle, which Feyre does end up getting, is love.
Mhm.
That's the answer to the riddle. So love is the
Mhm.
answer. The third trial, the third and final trial, it's interesting. So here's the setup essentially. So Feyre is presented with three fairies, and each of them have a sack over their head, and there are three ashwood daggers on pillows. So it's one of the important things to note. Ash wood is one of the weaknesses of the Fae. Ashwood kills the Fae, right?
Mhm.
So the choice here that she's given is that she's told that she must kill all three fairies to pass the trial.
Yeah.
And so it's the task itself, it's designed to break Feyre completely. It's forcing her to commit cold-blooded murder.
Mhm.
Um, but she realizes that if she completes this trial, she can actually save Tamlin and Prythian for that matter, right? And the
Yeah,
human world. Um,
exactly. Welcome
so
there.
yeah, it's kind of a hard choice. So
Yeah.
it ends up being so she does end up stabbing the first two fairies. She stabs the first two. She feels reluctance. She doesn't want to do it. It's not like this is easy for her.
Mhm.
The fairies are pleading with her, so it's like it's terrible.
Yeah, it
It's
really is.
yeah, it's a very emotional scene. Um, so the first two, as I mentioned, they're strangers to her. She doesn't know them, but it doesn't mean that she's not emotional about it because, as mentioned, they're pleading for their lives. She's a very moral character, so it's very hard for her.
Yeah.
And the third fairy is revealed to be Tamlin.
So she's forced to stab him and like kill
Right,
him.
right. So you're like, wait, what's the point of this trial?
I know, like, okay. And
So,
yes.
but then here's the trick. Here's the trick. But then Farah ends up remembering a conversation that Tamlin's heart is actually made of stone,
Oh yeah. So
right?
she does end up stabbing him.
She does. She does actually end up stabbing him. She's like, well, I can't, I gotta do it. So,
Yeah.
but she realizes it's a trick and she, that his heart is made of stone. And Um, so knowing that his heart is made of stone, essentially, it makes him immune to the dagger.
Hmm.
And um, so Farah stabs him anyways. But she's understanding at the same time that she's saving him from Amarantha's control.
Yeah.
So although her choice, it seems like a betrayal, ultimately it saves them all and it leads to the breaking of the curse and Amarantha's downfall.
But Feyre at this point, she dies.
Amarantha, even though she solves the riddle and she passes the trials, Amarantha breaks her neck.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's the part I remember this now very clearly because the sound of her neck breaking is like the worst thing
Hmm.
in the world. Yeah, I remember that. It was very explicit. So
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 even though
she
she did all this, and then Amaranth is like, "Nah, you're dead."
yeah, she ultimately sacrifices her life to break the curse, to free Tamlin. Yep, so Amarantha snaps her neck. But then, as it turns out, Feyre's soul is connected to Rhysand through their agreement
Hmm.
that they made when he came in and said, "Hey, like we should like buddy up," so,
Yeah. It's
so
their
he uses
tether.
yes, yes, he uses his power to influence the other High Lords, and so they pool all of their magic together
Hmm.
which is a very rare thing. And I think I remember some of them are not happy
They're
about having to do
reluctant.
this. They're very
Yeah.
reluctant, but because Rhysand has such a high pull with all of the other high fae, they pull all of the magic together and they resurrect her. And then here's the trick. Not only does it resurrect her, it transforms her into a high fae herself.
With all of their powers.
With all of their
Oh,
powers. It creates like a super hybrid high fae. So
yeah.
she awakens as a high fae. She's no longer human at all.
Yeah. And there's a difference between like regular Fae and high Fae. And high
Right.
Fae live
That's
longer and have more powers.
exactly. That's a good thing to note too. Yeah. So there's like the lowly fae, the regular fae. Like so those who are like servants in the house or just live like day-to-day lives.
Mhm.
It's like a fake caste system,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I
kind of.
know. Woof.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
she comes back.
she comes back and how does she come back? She comes back in a very profound way. So it's a very exciting, I would say, end to this whole setup and what ultimately ends up being, I would say, a really great series. I really really enjoyed these books.
Yeah,
um
absolutely. But like the ending like was wrapped up pretty well, but you can tell that there's like the part of the like loose ends is that the agreement that Rhysand and Farah makes is that, oh, now you have to he makes it then, right, where you have to come to my court um every so often just to like be with me
mhm.
on my terms, like, and you can't say no because I've
Right.
helped you through these trials. So yeah, and so it ends with her going back to the spring court traumatized. with
Oh,
even more
completely.
PTSD. Yeah.
And you kind of what I liked and appreciate, especially now, having read the rest of the books, is the first book ends and you kind of still don't know how to feel about both Tamlin and Rhysand.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're kind of like, I don't know. Like, do I trust them? Do I trust them both or do I not trust them both? Or is like one better than the other? So I appreciated that she did that.
Mhm.
And it obviously makes you want to learn what's going to happen because it's clear that this is it's kind of the end of one thing, but she's obviously going to start a whole new, I mean, her as a character, the evolution from being a human to being like the most powerful high fae ever with
Oh,
all
yeah.
these abilities and senses and
I know, I love the sense of growth that Feyre has throughout the series. Even just this book, it's like she was already like the provider, and now she's totally like on a whole other level with like saving the Fae, saving the Spring Court through the curses and stuff. It's amazing.
yeah, you know what? That's going to be, I think, the last thing that would be a great question to discuss is a court of thorns and roses, is it feminist? Like, could you argue for it being for feminism or maybe against feminism? And honestly, I think it's a little bit of both, right?
You think so? I think it's more for feminism than not. But what parts do you think are like not for
Okay,
feminism?
so okay, so I'll agree with you that I'll say that it's more feminist, but I
Yeah.
still think that you can make some arguments for it being against being feminism. And so feminists, so here kind of my ideas. One of the things that, and we talked about this already, so
Mhm.
her being kept in the dark for a lot of the story, like Tamlin, he's loving, but he's also manipulative and kind of controlling.
Yeah.
So I think that you could argue that her romance with Tamlin, it's reinforcing some toxicities, toxic tropes, right? So like love as a reward for suffering, perhaps.
Oh, definitely.
Um, Another thing that is, but once again, I think this is just the nature of the world that the author created, is that everyone is very conventionally beautiful and
Oh, yeah.
everyone is straight, you
Oh,
know?
true.
So but I'm okay with it because once again, I feel like this is such a niche thing. She created her own world. And so I, at the same time, kind of feel like she has the right
Yeah,
to
there are
maybe,
LGBTQ characters. Don't get
there
me wrong,
are, there are, yeah.
but it's not
Um,
like it is heavily like heterosexual.
Definitely, yeah. And so, okay, and so then, the last thing I'll mention is that based on Tamlin and everything, abuse is a little bit romanticized in the book.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that, she's finding that she's kind of feeling brushed aside a little bit with Tamlin.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to read the rest of the books, but what makes it feminist to you?
Well, because definitely Tamlin is like I feel like is one of the most more unfeminist sides, and I think that's important for the story too, because he's kind of just using her, and even though he's made up to be this like loving character, the specific instances where he's controlling what she does. He doesn't allow her outside or doesn't allow her to empower herself with reading or
Mm,
learning how to fight more.
true.
That's super like non-feminist, but I think that's crucial for the story to see like the breaks in who Tamlin is as like a toxic lover, toxic man. Um,
Totally.
and I think that helps Feyre to be like, "Oh, this isn't really love. This is my savior out of something horrible." And even though I do part of me loves him, he's not benefiting me entirely, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. And I definitely think that as you get into the later books, that it really ends up being feminist.
Yeah.
Like, and after even everything, and even though she ends up going back with Tamlin to the Spring Court, ultimately what I like about Feyre is that she's a survivalist and she isn't saved by magic. Well, I mean, that could be argued, but
Yeah.
she saves herself essentially, and she solves the riddle. She completes the trials, I mean, she gets help, you can argue that, but she
Yeah.
does end up risking everything for love. And I have to say, like, the sentimental, hopeless romantic in me, I'm always, I think that's a good way to like pretty much get me converted to anything.
Yeah.
It's like the whole trope of like risking everything for love, or
Yeah.
the bohemian ideals of truth, beauty, and love. That's like what I'm always saying is like one of the most important, or the most important mottos of life. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it could be argued both sides for this particular book in the series, the first one.
Yeah. I will say the next book is my favorite out of the series.
Yeah. Okay. So the next book, and we'll get into it in our second episode. The second book is called A Court of Mist and Fury.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about that. That is the second book in the series by Sarah J. Maas.
And we'll get into
And
more like how, because she's reeling at this point. At the end of the first book, she's reeling from PTSD. She's reeling from everything that is done. So um,
mhm.
we can really get into like the psychological in the next book too, which will be really fun.
Absolutely. And we would love to hear from listeners who have also read this series and especially this book. What did you think of Tamlin by the end of book 1? We would
Yeah.
love to hear what others thought and what,
Hmm.
how what they thought the story, how the story was going to continue after. So, I think that on that note, we wanted to thank everybody for listening, for joining our book coven, so to speak.
Yes. Woo! Book coven. I love it.
We're we're going to be launching our website as well as all of our social media along with the launch of this first episode this week. So
Yeah.
please stay tuned. Please sign up for our newsletter, and we're going to just keep everybody posted on the new episodes that are going to be coming out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think to start, we're going to be doing about an episode per month to start
Yeah.
out, right? So you can expect
Yeah.
that. And I know we didn't mention it yet, but Inez and I chose a special day to start recording this whole podcast,
We did. Yes.
right?
Happy New Moon.
Happy new moon.
Happy.
Yes, tonight we're actually officially recording on the 24th of July, 2025, and that is the night of the new moon. And if you're into
Mhm.
astrology at all, you may know that the new moon is a great time for new beginnings, right? It's
Yes.
signaling kind of the next cycle of the moon. And so we thought it would be really perfect to be in line with that, to send out
Mhm.
the good vibes into the universe that we're starting this project with intention.
Mhm.
And we're excited
Absolutely.
for all the things to come. So we encourage all of you to follow us and
Like and
to
subscribe.
like and subscribe, please. Our handle for everything across the board is going to be at Book Witches Podcast, just one word.
Mhm.
So make it easier to find us just across all the
On social media.
platforms.
Yeah.
So until next time, we look
Yay.
forward to discussing all things witchy, all things feminine, all things books, all things
Yes.
that make our souls sing. And we look forward to continuing to connect.
Yay. Thank you, everyone. Love you.
Love you all. See you in the next moon cycle.